I get to talk to a lot of Gen Y kids, high school and older, but it's now the younger generation is going to be affected by this and then some. They are suffering, they are starting with a deficiency that is the responsibility, that we have to share responsibility in helping them overcome. Let me explain. Almost every alcoholic on the planet discovered alcohol when they were teenagers. Because when we're very young, the only thing we need from the only approval we need is from our parents. That's it. You know, a little kid looks to their parents, the parents are happy, they're happy. And then when we go through adolescence, we start to need the approval of our peers. As frustrating as this is for parents, it's actually very important for us because it allows us to acculturate outside of our immediate families, right? It's a very stressful time, adolescence, and what we're supposed to learn is to rely on our friends during this time of stress and anxiety. Some people accidentally discover alcohol and the numbing effects of dopamine, because that's what dopamine does. And unfortunately, they accidentally make a hard-wired connection that when they suffer stress, you don't go to a friend, you go to the bottle. And that then plays out for the rest of their lives. All alcoholics, 100%, drink for a finite number of reasons. Social stress, financial stress, career stress. That's pretty much it, right? It's a coping mechanism. So we know that you get a dopamine release, which is the same chemical that makes you feel good when you drink. We know that you get a dopamine release when your phone goes buzz or beep or flash or, you know, bing. We know that you get that when you get social media alerts as well. And so what's starting to happen is these kids, as they're going through adolescence, nobody has recognized that the device is actually addictive. And so what we're actually doing is creating an entire generation of mini little addicts that are getting hardwired to believe that their sense of self-worth and their sense of coping comes from the device and not from another human being. That's why they suffer real stress when they lose followers. And they get real joy when they gain followers. Like the number of responses they get or likes that they get are real, those stresses. When they suffer, when they're feeling a little bit down, we do the same thing. When you're feeling a little down, you send out 10 texts hoping to get one back. And what's happening is because the device is so, can I borrow someone's phone? Here's what happens. The kids are walking around with them all the time. I now see girls walking around like this. Like they're not even holding them down here, it's like this. And I see boys walking around like this. This is just how they walk. It's here. It's not here. And they put it on the table in front of them. And here, let me show you what I mean. There's a subconscious effect on the people around us when we have our phones, and we're all guilty of this. What if I'm holding my phone? It's not tweeting, it's not buzzing, it's not beeping, and I'm not checking it. I'm simply holding my phone. Do you feel that you're the most important thing to me right now? No, you do not. And this is an artificial environment, simply by holding the phone. Which means when we show up to a meeting and we put our phones on the table, it says to the rest of the people in the room, you're not the most important thing to me right now. And by the way, putting your phone upside down is not more polite. When we show up for dinner with our families, when we have to have a conversation with one of our students, when we have to have a conversation with a parent, and we put a phone on the table, it says, this is not the most important thing to me right now. You felt it. And so the most important thing to do is to get rid of the device when you're engaging with another human being. So when somebody says, can I ask you a question? And you go, what's on your mind? Because what it says is, you have my attention. Remember that those chemicals, when somebody says, when we feel that somebody actually cares about us. And if you don't have a pocket, you go to a shelf nearby, you put it down, you say, what's on your mind? When someone comes into your office, you put the phone in the desk, you turn off the monitor, you shut the laptop, you say, what's on your mind, right? So what's happening is kids now, they go for dinner with each other, hang out with each other, the lunch table with each other, and the phones are out constantly. And not only they're just on the table, they're actually engaging with people instead of engaging with the people that they're with. And they're not actually learning, thank you, they're not actually learning how to make friends. They're not actually learning how to talk to people. So I've talked to many kids about this, that let's say they're using Google Maps to get somewhere, and their phone dies. They will spend more time looking for a charger than simply asking somebody where to go, because they're afraid to talk to people. And for slightly older ones, dating is the same. You know, you swipe right, and that's it, you can get a date, right? Like dating has been made so easy, it's instant gratification, and this is part of the problem. They're growing up in a world of instant gratification, where if you want to buy something, you go on Amazon, it shows up the next day. You want to watch a movie, you just log on and watch it. You don't check movie times. You want to watch TV, you don't wait week to week to week. You just binge watch over a weekend. If you want to get a date, you just log on and you can get a date, like no problem. And so what's starting to happen is they're accused of being entitled. I don't think they have a sense of entitlement. I think they're wonderful, smart, hardworking kids. I think what they have is a systemic impatience. And the problem is they think that satisfaction in life, fulfillment, or even love and friendship happen just as immediately, and they don't. It takes time and it takes unbelievable hard work. And the problem is they're not learning the skills to make friends. They're not learning the skills to fall in love. They're not learning the skills to talk to people. They're not learning the skills to find fulfillment because it's slow and it's boring and it's human. And we're starting to see the results. We're starting to see suicides are on the rise. Nobody kills themselves because they're hungry. They kill themselves because they're lonely. We're starting to see school shootings on the rise. In the 1960s, there was 1. In the 1980s, there were 27. In the 1990s, there were 58. In the past decade, we've had over 120. 70% were perpetrated by kids born after the year 1980. Most of them were about 15 years old. And though we have no good science on it, we know anecdotally that they spent a disproportionate amount of their social lives, online. Human relationships is what makes people happy. This is why solitary confinement is considered torture in many places. And what we're doing is basically solitary confinement. We've taken the kids away from each other, and they're engaging with their phones more than anything. I, for one, do not believe there should be a phone in a school. There should definitely not be a phone in a classroom, and I don't know why you need the internet in a classroom either. Whatever they're using, they can use. I do not understand, because and the reason I'm draconian about it is the same reason we take the alcohol out of the alcoholic's home, because you can't trust the willpower. It's too powerful. It is addiction. It is addiction. We aren't even good at putting our phones away. And so now you're going to ask a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 9-year-old to do it? We're out of our minds. The only way to do it is to take the phone away, to ban them in a classroom and ban them in a school. They will hate it at the beginning and then watch what happens. I'll give you some personal experiences. So when I go in to do workshops with people, I'll sit with a room full of executives, and the first thing I do is I take a bucket or a bowl and I walk around the room and I make them throw their phones in the bucket or the bowl. I get very dirty looks and they are not happy. These are some senior executives that go like this, right? And I take all the phones away and I put them on the side, and then we start the workshop. Here's what happens. Within a few minutes, everybody relaxes. People talk to each other. And the most important thing is the breaks. Because usually what happens in a break, and I watch it happen here too, as soon as we stand up, we go like this. You're all nice and respectful when I'm on the stage, but as soon as we stop, everybody's checking in, right? Now, as an aside, there's no quicker way to undermine the trust in your people than to feel the need that you have to check in every hour, as opposed to saying, hey guys, I'm going to be out for a day, you got this, I trust you, right? Make it green, check with Steve, you know? But that's what we do, we respond to everything. But worse, we're not engaging with each other. The value of these events is each other. And so when I take these phones away from these executives, in the breaks, they sit and they talk to each other. Nobody goes to get their phone. I made no rule that said they can't. I just put them away and put them on the side. They actually talk to each other. The quality of the workshop is always fantastic, and the best part is when they walk out, they actually are talking to each other on their way out. In other words, camaraderie. Simply by forcing the phone to be taken away, it's a mechanism to get the behavior that we want. David Marquet's work talks about this. You don't try to change people's thinking to get the behavior. You change the behavior to change their thinking. And so sometimes you have to force it. There should never, ever, ever be a cell phone in a conference room. I don't care if you're with each other or with your parents, whatever, or you're meeting with your students. Theirs or yours. There should never be a cell phone out in any kind of conference room ever, because the quality of the meetings goes up. And I promise you, even though people will grumble, and even though they'll hate it, and even though parents will say, what about an emergency? Here's what you do in an emergency. Call this number, it's the school. Tell us, little Jimmy, something happened to his grandmother, and we'll go get little Jimmy for you. Old school, right? Like, I got it, there's an emergency. That doesn't mean the kid has to have a phone on the whole time, because the negative impact is not worth the benefit. And at the end of the day, how many kids have really been called up because of emergencies on their phones? I mean, you know? In my world, I would love to put chicken wire inside the sheetrock of all the schools so the phones just don't work. And it'd be like, AT&T, you know? Anyway, my point is what'll start to happen is simply by removing the device, including the cafeteria. I'm not talking classroom, I'm talking everywhere. You'll start to see the kids talking. and learning how to communicate and learning how to build social relationships, learning how to talk to each other, learning how to talk to their teachers, learning how to talk to their parents. They will acculturate and socialize. There's skills that they're lacking that are manifesting in things like depression, suicide, and school shootings later on in life. Those are the worst case scenarios. The best case scenario is you just hate your life and live your life just going through life thinking life sucks and not really loving your friends. Colleges now are dealing with unprecedented numbers of people dropping out or taking leaves of absences because of depression. It all starts here.